The stock car racing trial of the century is here, but you may not know it if you live outside of the NASCAR bubble.
What happens when one of NASCAR's biggest stars sits in a courtroom and starts crying while talking about the sport he loves? Well, that's exactly what happened this week, and what Denny Hamlin said on that witness stand might change NASCAR forever. On Monday, a huge trial started in Charlotte, North Carolina. This isn't just any court case. This is Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan taking on NASCAR itself. And when Hamlin walked up to testify as the very first witness, nobody expected what came next. Just minutes into his testimony, Hamlin broke down in tears. He had to stop talking and take a moment to pull himself together. Why? He was asked how he got into racing, and he started thinking about his dad. Hamlin told the court that his father is very sick right now and not doing well. You could see the pain on his face. Hamlin talked about being 20 years old and facing a big choice. He could keep racing, or he could stop and go work for his dad's trailer business. It was a tough decision. His family had given up so much to help him race. But Hamlin chose racing, and that choice led him all the way to NASCAR's top level. Even after becoming a successful driver, Hamlin said starting a race team was almost impossible. He found a team that was going out of business and thought about buying it, but he knew he couldn't do it alone. So he turned to someone he'd become friends with over the years, Michael Jordan. Hamlin used to be a season ticket holder when Jordan owned the Charlotte Hornets basketball team. They got to know each other, and when Hamlin needed a partner, he thought of Jordan. Hamlin told the court something really important. He said, "If I can't be successful with Michael as a partner, I knew this was never going to work." And guess what? Michael Jordan was sitting right there in the courtroom watching everything unfold. Having Jordan as a partner made all the difference. Since starting 23XI Racing in 2021, the team has made money in 4 out of 5 years. That might sound normal, but in NASCAR, it's actually really rare. So why are Hamlin and Jordan suing NASCAR? And what does this trial mean for the future of stock car racing? The case is pretty simple when you break it down. Hamlin's team, 23XI Racing, and another team called Front Row Motorsports say that NASCAR is acting like a bully. They claim NASCAR runs everything like a monopoly, which means teams have no other choice. If you want to race stock cars at the highest level, you have to do what NASCAR says. There's nowhere else to go. The team's lawyer is a man named Jeffrey Kessler. In his opening statement, he laid out some shocking numbers. He said that Bob Jenkins, who owns Front Row Motorsports, has never made a profit since starting his team way back in 2004. Think about that. 21 years of racing, and he's never made money. Front Row even won the Daytona 500 in 2021, one of the biggest races in the world, and they still couldn't turn a profit. But it gets worse. Kessler told the court that NASCAR did their own study, and that study found that 75% of teams lost money in 2024. 3 out of every 4 teams are losing money. Meanwhile, over a 3-year period, the France family, which owns NASCAR, took home almost $400 million. NASCAR itself is worth $5 billion according to a study done by Goldman Sachs in 2023. Kessler said something really powerful. He told the court, "What the evidence is going to show is Mr. France ran this for the benefit of his family at the expense of the teams in sport." In other words, the France family is getting richer while the teams are struggling to survive. At the heart of this whole lawsuit is something called the charter system. Before charters existed, teams would show up to race and hope they'd make it into the race. There was no guarantee. Now, if you own a charter, your car is guaranteed a spot in every race. You also get a share of the prize money, and the charter itself becomes something valuable that you can sell if you want to get out of racing. Hamlin explained to the court exactly what 23XI paid for their 3 charters. The first one cost $4.7 million. The second one cost $13.5 million. The third one, which they bought late last year, cost $28 million. All 3 of those charters came from teams that went out of business. That's important. Teams are failing so often that buying charters from dead teams is normal. Hamlin said buying that 3rd charter worried him because of how expensive it was, especially with this lawsuit going on, but he felt like they had no choice. If 23XI wants to become a top team, they need 3 cars, and the most recent charter that sold went for $45 million. The prices keep going up and up. Now, here's where the math gets really bad for teams. Hamlin testified that it costs $20 million just to bring 1 car to all 38 races in a season. And that $20 million doesn't even include driver salaries or the cost of running the business itself. Those are extra. So how much does a charter pay teams? The new agreement that everyone signed this year pays $12.5 million per car. NASCAR says this is great because it's more than the old agreement, which paid $9 million. But look at those numbers again. It costs at least $20 million to race, and NASCAR gives you $12.5 million. That's a gap of $7.5 million, and teams have to find that money through sponsors. Kessler asked a question that hit hard. He said, "So why would these people do this if you are just going to lose money because NASCAR isn't giving you a fair deal?" Then he answered it himself. Because you love stock car racing and there's nowhere else to do it. That's the monopoly argument right there. If you want to race stock cars, NASCAR is the only game in town. You either accept their terms or you quit. Hamlin also pointed out something scary. Of the first 19 teams that got charters, 11 of them don't exist anymore. More than half are gone. They went out of business. The charter system was supposed to help teams, but instead, teams keep failing. The only reason 23XI is doing okay is because of Michael Jordan. Hamlin was honest about that. Jordan's name brings in sponsors and attention that other teams can't get. Without him, 23XI would probably be struggling just like everyone else. Now, NASCAR has their own side of the story. Their lawyer, Johnny Stevenson, stood up and defended the France family. He said, "The France family built NASCAR from nothing. They are an American success story." He talked about 75 years of hard work and said that kind of effort deserves admiration, not a lawsuit. NASCAR argues that the charter system has actually been great for teams. They say it created $1.5 billion in equity for the 36 chartered teams. That means the charters themselves are worth something now. Before charters, teams had nothing to sell when they wanted to quit. Now they have an asset. NASCAR also points to the fact that charter payments went up from $9 million to $12.5 million. They say this shows they're trying to help teams make more money. But here's the problem with NASCAR's argument. If everything is so great, why are 75% of teams losing money? Why have 11 of the original 19 chartered teams gone out of business? Why has Front Row never made a profit in 21 years? The trial also revealed something interesting about Michael Jordan's presence. During jury selection, one potential juror got dismissed because he said, "I like Mike," and admitted he couldn't be impartial. Another person got cut because they had Michael Jordan posters on their walls growing up. One juror mentioned being a North Carolina fan, but said their football team wasn't doing too well. Jordan shook his head and laughed at that. Sitting in the courtroom were some of NASCAR's most powerful people. Jim France, the chairman of NASCAR and son of the founder, was there. So was Lisa France Kennedy, the vice chair. These are the people who run everything. After the opening statements, they had to leave because they might be called as witnesses later. A NASCAR insider named Brett Griffin put together a wish list of things he hopes comes out of this trial. He wants teams to be able to build their own cars and buy parts from different suppliers instead of being forced to use NASCAR's choices. He wants teams to get a share of all of NASCAR's money, not just some of it. He wants charters to be permanent so teams don't have to worry about losing them. He wants drivers to have the ability to organize and negotiate together. He wants NASCAR to respect their hardcore fans more and to stop letting people talk down to drivers and teams. So what happens next? If NASCAR wins this case, 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports could go completely out of business. Their 6 cars would be gone. The charters they own, which NASCAR is holding right now, would get sold to someone else, maybe to private equity firms that have shown interest. But if the teams win, everything could change. The judge could award them money for damages. He could force NASCAR to change how they do business. He could even order NASCAR to be sold or break up the charter system entirely. Nothing is off the table. This trial could literally tear apart NASCAR as we know it and rebuild it from scratch. This case is about more than just contracts and money. It's about survival. Hamlin made that clear in his testimony. He talked about how teams have to compete against NASCAR itself, for sponsors, for employees, for everything. And only one side keeps going out of business. It's always the teams, never NASCAR. The trial will continue with more testimony from Hamlin and eventually from NASCAR's top executives. Whatever the jury decides will shape the future of stock car racing for decades to come. Will NASCAR stay the way it is, controlled by one family, or will teams finally get a fair shake? We're about to find out.